The four Allied invasions of 1944 and their role in the destruction of Nazi Germany by David Benish, Thaddeus Black, and Laura Brace. Four Allied operations in 1944 were the death nails in the coffin of the Axis, as all were significant in putting pressure on Germany's defensive fronts from the west, east, and the south. Let's take a look at each of these operations individually. Operation Overlord on June 6, 1944, the cross-channel invasion of Europe, was unlike any war operation in history. Northern France was well defended and near the German heartland, and the Allied landing was the most anticipated event of the whole war. Allied planners in the spring of 1942 began looking seriously at cross-channel operations there, but the overwhelming nature of Operation Torch in North Africa postponed the cross-channel invasion until May 1944. In August 1943, Britain and the US agreed that the Normandy coast, while not being the shortest distance across the channel, would be the final landing area for the Overlord operation. Deception played a major role in convincing the Germans that the cross-channel landing would occur at Pas-de-Calais. Fortitude, the name of the deception plan, worked as Germany devoted significant resources to fortifying the Pas-de-Calais, and they held back reserves there well into the Normandy campaign. On the day of the invasion, German naval and air power was now so weak they could offer no real threat to the invasion fleet. The 5 landing beaches were attacked just after dawn, and all were secured within the first day. Despite some initial confusion, airborne landings mounted days prior to the invasion secured the flanks. Allied forces secured a beachhead about 60 miles wide and some 20 miles inland. This created room for forward air bases and supply dumps beyond German artillery. The most strategic development early in the campaign was the US capture of Sherbrooke, a major port west of Normandy. Allied tactical air power came into its own during the Normandy campaign, softening up German defenses, driving the Luftwaffe from forward air bases, and preventing the rapid movement of German reserves into the landing areas. Despite the general success of the initial landings, considerable German counterattacks slowed Allied progress. The French town of Caen was planned to be taken in one day, but was fought over for more than a month by the British. The ring of German forces were gradually worn down, and about 8 weeks after the initial landings, the Americans broke out with Operation Cobra, led by General George Patton and his Third Army, effectively bringing to a close the Normandy campaign.
While the Western Allied forces opened the true second front against Nazi Germany in Normandy, the Red Army had even more grandeur plans in the east. At the time of Operation Overlord, Germany had approximately 60 divisions in France to oppose any landings. The bulk of the Wehrmacht, 156 divisions, was still oriented along the eastern front and maintained positions from the Gulf of Finland to the Black Sea. The majority of combat strength in the east was located in Army Group Center. Stavka planners decided to cross the land bridge into Western Europe by seizing Belorussia and destroying Army Group Center. Decisive to this operation was the Soviet deception campaigns, which indicated that the offensive would come on the southern side of the Pripyat marshes in the Ukraine instead of through Belorussia. This would also be the first successful execution of deep battle doctrine that was emphasized by Red Army planners in the years leading up to World War II. Prior to 1944, the Red Army lacked transportation means to quickly exploit battlefield successes, but due to the large influx of Lend-Lease equipment, notably the American Studebaker trucks, the Red Army would be more mobile than ever before. Operation Bagration kicked off on the 3-year anniversary of Operation Barbarossa with drastic success. Within 10 days, the Red Army seized Minsk and continued to pursue the damaged remains of Army Group Center. By August, these forces traveled an additional 300 miles west prior to halting at the edge of the Vistula River on the outskirts of Warsaw. By the end of the campaign, 17 German divisions were completely destroyed, while an additional 50 divisions lost more than half of their combat strength. Operation Dragoon was originally intended to coincide with the landings on the Normandy coast. The landings in southern France were intended to be a feint while attempting to draw German pressure south away from the main landings at Normandy. The choice to invade southern France was a difficult decision for the Western Allies. Allied forces in Italy had been successful in breaking through the German lines and seizing Rome on 5 July 1944, and were poised to continue offensive operations further north and potentially into the Balkans. The final decision to invade southern France did not come until early July 1944 and came as a result of the damage that the Mulberry Harbor sustained in stormy weather on the Normandy coast. The port of Marseille in southern France was needed and would serve as a prominent supply hub. Unlike the joint U.S. Commonwealth efforts of Operation Overlord, Operation Dragoon involved 3 American infantry divisions, the 3rd, the 36th, and the 45th, as well as the 517th Airborne Infantry Regimental Combat Team. These divisions were combat veterans of the Italian campaign and would be put to good use in France. The initial landings were closely followed by an additional landing of French forces, which proved pivotal in liberating southern France. German resistance was negligible due to many of its top-tier divisions being tied down in Normandy, and by mid-September these forces had secured the harbor of Marseille and linked up with General Patton's Third Army further north.
The invasion of Hungary. Romania and Hungary had been allies of the Axis powers throughout the war. Romania was a source of oil and gas and other vital resources for Germany. Hungary had an anti-communist authoritarian leader, Horthy, who also held anti-Semitic and anti-Slavic views. Hungary's submission to Germany created what is known as the Hungarian Holocaust. Hundreds of thousands of Hungarian Jews were deported to death camps and forced labor camps. When Romania conducted a successful coup in August 1944, the German Army South Ukrainian was destroyed. Hungary attempted to negotiate a peace with the Allies separately. Horthy was deposed, and the Nazis installed a new government. This weakened position allowed the Soviets to lead a major advance into Hungary in October 1944 in an attempt to invade the eastern perimeter of the Reich. The Soviet generals believed that the invasion would not last as long as it did, but the Germans and loyal Hungarians were able to mount a defense that slowed the invasion. Eventually, the Soviets were able to fully encircle Budapest in December, leading to the siege of Budapest. The siege lasted until February and killed 100,000 Soviet soldiers, but the Soviets were ultimately victorious. The 4 Allied invasions in 1944, Normandy, southern France, Belarus, and Hungary, penetrated the perimeter of the German Reich from 3 sides: the French, US, and other Western allies from the west, south, and the Soviets from the east. They were able to exploit their advantages, and with the help of resistance from inside the Reich, eventually the Allies would move closer to Berlin, contributing to the impending end of the war in Germany in April 1945.